Today we paint another Trench Crusade miniature. I painted this human leisurely without recording it on video or even taking progress photos. I enjoyed the painting so much, but I don't want to paint another green miniature. Today's video is the painting of this mechanized infantry. However, we're painting it with blue armor. The painting of the blue armor is practically our usual double slop chop. Also in this video, we're going to use some John Blanche paint since the sets are now released in the market. In case you haven't heard, these John Blanche Army Painter paints are awesome. As usual, we're going to do some glazing at the latter part of the painting after our double slop chop. I super enjoyed painting this miniature, and do tell me what colored armor do you want next. Oh, by the way, the OSL or the heat effect, especially the fire, like the fire effect on the rifle, is an afterthought. So I did not record too much of the painting of these features. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my channel. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. Also, special thanks to the Army Painter for making this video possible. Also, do check out some discount codes and links at the description below. We start with a zenithal-ish underpainting. I started with black primer and then of course gray primer. The gray primer was sprayed roughly around 1 to 2 p.m. angle, and then you could see here that the white primer was painted directly from the top, like 12 midnight, 12 noon from the top angle, like directly from the top. And you can see the shades at the bottom areas of the miniature because it's zenithal-ish. But I want to make the edges of the other details pop a bit more, so we're doing a little bit of dry brushing. This white dry brushing is a little bit optional if you plan to paint a lot of highlights later. However, if you have zero plans of highlighting and you just want to paint like speed paints, it's important to do this white dry brushing to make the edges pop and to make some details, especially at the lower areas, pop a bit more. Now we have a zenithal-ish plus dry brush under painting. Now we are ready to speed paint. Today's blue armor painting is playing it safe because we're not painting with rust underpainting. We're simply using purple swarm as our first painting or undercoat for our blue armor. This purple swarm will give us a very nice color depth once we paint the blue armor later, since purple or violet is a natural shade for blue because it's an analogous color to blue. To keep it simple, analogous colors are colors beside each other in the color wheel. Usually I paint the base first. It's a really good warm up to warm up when using speed paints when you start using speed paints. But with this one, I know that my underpainting for the blue armor would be violet. So I started with the violet painting. Also, I almost always use reddish browns for the base because like a Mars looking reddish brown, it makes the models pop on the table. However, these days, especially for Trench Crusade, I'm into the yellow ochre browns, which are darker and a little bit more desaturated. Now we're painting a cultist cloak. This is darker and has a more bluish tint to graveyard gray. You may also use a thin down like grim black if you're not into the purplish bluish tone of a cultist cloak. We are using frostbite for our second slop chop because I don't want to use white since I'm going for a darker finish. The technique kinda worked, but if you want a darker finish, you could use a darker blue color for the dry brushing. But of course, you could simply use white paint and tone down the armor with washes later. However, I feel that using this light blue color for the dry brushing will help with the transition from purple to the blue speed paint later. Also notice that I also dry brush the base or the groundwork so that the details pop as we apply a second round of speed paints. Normally I would use magic blue for any blue armor painting, but with this one I decided to use royal rose. Royal rose is still nice and bright, it's still vibrant, but it's not as vibrant as magic blue. I knew while I was painting this blue speed paint that I would apply a lot of weathering to this armor. So even though I'm painting fast and using a big brush so that I produce a nice finish, it's very important that you produce like a very nice finish if you don't plan to weather. So if you don't plan to apply weathering on the blue armor, make sure that you work fast and you use a bigger brush. I'm very happy with the result so far. You could actually stop and just paint the weapon and the other parts of the miniature and you're done. Sometimes I'm really amazed with our double slop chop. For some reason, it doesn't fail us. It doesn't fail me. We always get pretty good results. Now we use the same color, frost blue, that we use for the dry brushing under painting of our second slop chop. And we use like the sponge. This is called sponge chipping in fine scale modeling. Now, if you want to play it safe when it comes to chipping effects, you need to choose the color that is not too far from the base color of your armor. In that manner, no matter how you apply, no matter how much you apply chipping, it won't like it won't look harsh because it will blend with the blue armor and it won't stand out too much. With this one though, I really wanted the chipping to stand out as you can see in the video because I'm going for a grim dark, heavy weathered look. Generally, light colored chipping represent like less severe scratches. Now we're using Banshee Brown from the John Blanche collection and this will represent heavier or deeper dents on the armor. This color could also be like interpreted as dry rust. Depending on the final look that you're going for, you could apply less of this heavier or darker chipping so that your armor is still functional. Now the armor is looking freckled. It's not a little bit too much, but we need to blend, especially the lighter chipping, add more shades and washes, and of course, rust effects. We start the Rush Effects painting with the Grim Rust from the John Blatch collection. This Grim Rush is a very welcome addition to the Rust Effects from the Army painting because the dry rust is a little bit too dark and the fresh rust is a little bit too bright. This one is just perfectly smack in the middle. So since this grim rust is smack in the middle, it's the perfect, it's not too bright, it's not too dark. It's the perfect paint to start your weathering with rust effects. After painting with grim rust, we now paint with fresh rust. With this one, because this is a little bit too bright, especially for some people, it's nice to apply this very like in small areas only, in edges that you want to pop and you just want to have accent colors on those areas. But you could easily tone this down later with some washes. But definitely, less is more when it comes to fresh rust. Now after applying that, we tone it down with rust tone wash. This rust tone wash behaves a little bit different in comparison to the usual Warpaints Fanatic washes. It has some opacity, which is really great, especially if you want to blend all the rust painting that you did so that it looks more cohesive. As you can see in the video, this rust tone wash kind of tones down the fresh rust. Also, I'm using it like a streak, a rust streak. I'm applying it in downward streaks and sometimes stippling it in some areas. Now, I'm very happy with the painting. This is, you could really call this done, especially if, of course, you paint the other parts of the miniature. Now, if you find value out of this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Now, it's just a matter of painting like the rest of the miniature. Since I'm going for a grim dark finish, you could see that I'm choosing colors that are not too saturated. I have to admit though that I'm not comfortable painting grimdark, although I'm happy with our armor painting. I feel that during this part of the painting process that I needed an accent color. I want a color that will pop. Don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying the painting of this grim dark finish, especially because of the John Blanche paints, and of course it's kind of fresh to me, but I really want like a color that will pop so that the miniature will really stand out in my display cabinet or it will pop on the table. Now I'm using leather brown to like represent some mud effects. Now I'm retouching some rust effects areas so that it will blend more or it will complement the blue armor better. After applying some more rust effects, I gave up. As you can see, I asked my daughter Nico to craft me like a fire effect from the rifle. Also, by now, I am decided to also paint the engine parts so that I will have the OSL effects as my accent colors. After painting some white as underpainting for the OSL, I painted the OSL effects exactly like my previous video. So I did not record it on this video for this video because you could check it out in my last video. Basically, after painting white underpainting, I painted some, like it's sketch and glaze. I sketch with actual colors, Warpaints Fanatic colors, Flickering Flame, and of course, the John Blanche Fiery Vermilion for the tip. And then I glazed it with some fluorescent paints to blend all the colors. So if you want to really see how I painted the OSL, you might want to check out my recent or my previous video. Now we thin down pale sand. I'm thinning it down roughly around 1 part pale sand and 3 parts Warpaint stabilizer. I'm using this thin down pale sand as like for our dust effects. This is a fine scale like painting technique wherein you use a pale sand-ish color. You could use oil. Some people use oil especially for tank painting. But with this one I'm stippling it, and sometimes I'm painting streaks downwards as you can see in the video so that it would represent like dust that accumulated over like a moist armor, but basically it's dust effects, and we're using pale sand. And since this is a dust effect, notice that I'm only painting it on the top areas of the armor, and of course on areas that would naturally accumulate dust. Dust effects is very quick to do. You just need to apply a couple of passes of glazes. It's worth it, but it's very much optional. Now, before my final thoughts, a huge thanks to all my patrons at Patreon, Hajime Model Studio, and of course, the Army Painter for making this video possible. Now, I'm pretty happy with the result, especially after the OSL. I'm not that comfortable not having an accent color in my miniature painting. The OSL painting or the heat effect, especially on the engine part at the back, is like will really make the miniature pop on the table. So I'm really happy that even though it's an afterthought, I'm happy that I pushed through with the OSL effect. Oh, don't get me wrong though. I enjoyed and I love the result of the blue armor painting. Weathering armor or weathering mecha or like this one, mechanized infantry is very relaxing and very fun. It's not as straightforward as what I showed you in the video, but I kind of showed you that I went back to retouching with rust tones, with rust effects, and then did stippling with dust effects, and then you could go back to adding more shades, and then you could go back again to adding more highlights or edges or even chipping on the armor. So it's not as straightforward or as, how do you say it, as organized or as systematic as I showed you, but hopefully this video is easier to follow and you could achieve the same results by simply watching and following this painting video. If you follow the painting of this armor though and you still find it a little bit too vibrant and not grim dark enough, you can simply apply more washes and glaze it all over the miniature. But if it's still not grim dark enough after applying some washes, I suggest that you get a cup of tea, dunk the miniature, let it stay there for a week or even a month, then it will have a nice sepia finish. Just kidding, guys. Just apply more washes. That's it, Pansit. I hope you like this video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Until next video, guys. Bye!